last part of today's
Nous allons
conversation. And the
continuer cette
last part, we are
conversation
going
avec
to
la
have,
dernière
we're
phase
going to be telling the tale of African philanthropy.
où nous
And the
allons
moderator
raconter
for
l'histoire
this
de la
session is
philanthropie
none other
africaine.
than Karen Chalamila. I don't know
Nous
if
avons
you're
Karen
here, Karen.
Chalamida
Are you
pour
there?
cette session.
Is
Karen est
Karen
toujours
with
là?
us?
Est-ce que Karen est là?
Okay, we are supposed to have Karen and we're supposed to have Aremu
Nous
Olade
devons
as
avoir Karen
speaker.
et
Is
Aremu pour me parler
Aremu with
pour
us?
cette session, pour cette conversation. Est-ce qu'Aremu est
Okay,
là?
I can see that Karen is with us. Karen,
Je
if
vois
you
que
are with
Karen
us
est avec
and you
nous,
can
elle
hear
est
me.
parmi nous.
Okay,
Hi.
I can see Karen. Hi, Karen. Good to have you moderate the last session for today. So we're excited to hear
Nous
what you
sommes
have in
ravis,
store for us. Over to you, Karen.
très excités d'écouter ce que vous avez à nous
Thank you
dire
so much
aujourd'hui.
for that introduction.
Merci
Just
beaucoup
before
pour
I
cette
start, I don't know if it's just me,
introduction
but I
avant
can
que je
hear
commence.
a Portuguese translation on the other line as well, so I can't really hear myself that well.
Yes, I think you're right about that. Please would like to just encourage our interpreters to make sure they're using the interpretation line, the link, because we can actually get the interference. So carry on, Karen. Good afternoon, and let's have your session.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so great listening to all the panels so far. Everything has been so illuminating and so engaging. So my name is Karen. I'm a gender and media consultant, which means my field is predominantly media. I deal a lot with storytelling, which is essentially the title of this session. Storytelling is incredibly important to me as an individual, to APN, as well as like in Africa. So many African communities have used storytelling as a way to pass down knowledge, to pass down wisdom, to pass down methods of survival. It's such an important mode of language for us. And it's also a really important way of archiving. As long as African communities have existed, we've used storytelling as a way to document our thoughts and ideas and progress, to inform how we can better live our lives currently as well as in the future. And very recently, we've seen how important this kind of like archiving our progress has been, with a lot of people referencing documentation in the Ebola crisis to figure out how to deal with the COVID pandemic. I think especially in terms of changing the narratives of Africa as well as African philanthropy have not always been able to come from us. Those voices have not been unique to who we are. They've often been kind of inflicted on us. And I think if we're going to talk about changing the narrative, then it's extremely essential that those voices come from us, that they are actually rooted in Africanness, especially because African giving has existed for as long as African communities have existed. And so with APN, it's been really exciting to figure out ways in which we can play our part to foster this storytelling and to foster this kind of archiving of what it's like to give in an African way, with programs and workshops and all sorts. And I think a blessing in disguise, kind of during the pandemic, we kind of had to move things virtually. That gave us a chance to host a lot of virtual workshops and programs to foster this. The first one, which was one that was really dear to my heart, was the Women's Writing Program, where we invited young women across the continent who already had an interest in writing as a form of storytelling. And we had a weeks-long program where we went from researching to analysis to putting your thoughts together into like writing form, and finally to pitch that piece to publication so that it can be out there. I think it's incredibly important to have specific programs that target groups such as women and youth as well, who are often, I want to use the word disenfranchised in a lot of African communities, groups of people whose voice is extremely nuanced and extremely important, but is not always given the space that it needs. I think particularly in media, there's a disproportionate representation of storytelling, especially coming for women in particular. So that was something that we found to be extremely important. And it's what formed the basis of our blog, the APN blog called Simulisi, which is essentially an online space that archives the stories. It's an online space that holds all of these experiences and voices and tales of African giving that have been researched and worked on by a lot of the women writers who come from very specific contexts and have a lot to share and a lot that they're passionate about in terms of philanthropy in their respective communities. And a lot more recently, we then had the essay and storytelling competition that focused on youth, and that focused on youth of all genders. And again, the ethos of that was just to encourage storytelling, to encourage sharing our narratives. And the main focus on the essays and the stories was to generate views from the youth on the power of philanthropic giving to address social change. We had a much more specific criteria that served as a guideline for the youth, but essentially the point was to generate ideas and thoughts on how philanthropic giving can, in a little more practical way, to generate thoughts on how philanthropic giving can address social change. And obviously, because we're still currently in the midst of a pandemic, a lot of the ideas that were submitted drew a lot from that current experience. And it was such a joy to read all the submissions. It was such a joy to see how innovative and creative the youth of the continent are, and how their thoughts are truly pioneering the kind of social change that we hope to see. In the previous panels, a lot of panelists talked about imagination as a tool for change. And I think that was so abundantly clear with a lot of the submissions from the essays as well as stories. I think when the narrative of African living as well as giving has been so set in stone for so long and so false and just not representative of the way that we actually live and the way that we actually practice philanthropy, it takes a little bit more imagination to kind of to change that. Your creativity has to be a little more radicalized in the way you think of how to promote social change, right? Because you're kind of going entirely against the grain. And it was just also very encouraging to see a lot of these ideas, and a lot of those stories are also going to be found in the Simulisi blog, as well as compiled together in a booklet that will be accessible online for everyone to kind of see these thoughts. We framed it as a competition to kind of just encourage, just as an incentive, but really and truly everyone that submitted, whatever the kind of judging that they got from the criteria, everyone was just such a joy to read. We had a remarkable amount of submissions, about 85 submissions from essays and stories, which is also another kind of sign that there's a lot of youth that are very keen on taking initiative to think about and the ways in which philanthropic giving can impact social change. And it's not that those thoughts and ideas don't exist. It's literally because of lack of opportunity. And so being able to create that space for youth to do that was a really, I'm very grateful to have been part of that. So like I said, we judged the submissions with a specific criteria, because that ultimately was a competition. And so we do have some that impressed us a little more. And in particular, I think, I'm not sure if they're available in the summit currently, but if not, I think they submitted a video. But the winner of the essay competition really impressed us in that they had a really innovative and creative outlook on how philanthropic giving can impact social change, and they articulated it in such an effective, such a clear way. Yeah, and if the video is available, it would be great for everyone to see it, because they talk about their process and how they came up with the idea and the writing of their essay. So I don't know if that video could be pulled up, if possible. If not, I think what we can do is just make sure that it is available, just because, along with the essay itself, just because I think it'd be so beneficial. Oh, there we go. The screen is being shared.
Good evening, the Corporate Social Responsibility Executive, Foundation and Trust leaders, government representatives, community philanthropy organizations, academia, philanthropy support networks, and other stakeholders within and beyond the continent of Africa. My name is Aremolade Mustafa, the Nigerian national who doubles as the winner of the 2021 APN Africa Philanthropy Network essay competition. In lieu of these, I am very grateful to God for bringing me this far, because I started writing this essay competition less than 24 hours to submission, and in fact, I submitted a minute to the deadline. However, I would also be using this opportunity to express my profound gratitude to all my supportive system, my parents, my siblings, friends, and relatives. It would also be a self-denial of truth to say that I am not glad to be in the midst of this intellectual gathering. APN, thank you very much for this golden opportunity. Honestly, this essay competition resuscitates in me the beauty and toga of integrity of Mother Africa. At the outset of the layout to my essay, my mind went to one of my high school teachers known with the mantra, Africa owns the ideology of communalism. So, I picked it up from there and then related to the topic of the essay. During the course of my research, I found 1001 impact Africa has recorded through charitable giving. Should we talk about how we rally round to fight apartheid in South Africa? How some notable individuals contribute to the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic? How we spearheaded peacemaking and peacekeeping force to conflict zones through our regional and international bodies, among several others. Indeed, it is so painful that I could not write as much legendary tales as I wanted concerning African philanthropism, because the word count would not permit. But then, I look forward to writing more stories to showcase Africa as the hub of charitable giving, and more so to see it as a tool for the continent's prosperity, political, economical, and social wise. Also, it's a no doubt that the essay detailed the social changes that have permeated the length and breadth of our great continent, Africa. Poverty, gender inequality, job insecurity, and so many others. These are the social changes Africa is currently battling with. For the government and our financial institutions, they are not exempted from these social changes. Hence, it is imperative that we utilize our golden heritage Mother Africa has passed on to us, this generation, to solve this myriad of social changes. As such, I'm very hopeful that with proper utilization of African philanthropism, there would be a rewrite in the African history. On this note, I will say I'm looking forward for continued partnership with the African Philanthropic Network, and also using this opportunity to say, God bless every one of us. God bless APN, our African Philanthropic Network, for bringing this medium for the African youth to come together and brainstorm on philanthropy giving in their continent. This is what being emulated in our regional philanthropy bodies across the African continent. Ultimately, I would say, God bless Africa. Together, I believe we can build the Africa we all desire. Thank you for this opportunity, and have a nice day.
So that young man's name is Ololade, and it was such a pleasure reading their essay that they submitted. And they weren't able to be with us today, but they sent us that video to kind of explain their thinking, and we're really grateful for that. Also, just to emphasize the all of the stories and the essays, as well as the previous articles from the Women's Writing Program, are going to be found in the blog. But the blog is open to everyone. And APN commissions a lot of people to write the blog. Obviously, now that we're in a youth summit, we would be so happy to get pitches from youth, the youth that are currently in the summit. Any story or essay or interview, any kind of piece of writing that you think is illuminating of the way philanthropic giving operates on the continent. Feel free to contact us for it. It does come at a commission. It's paid at $100 an article, just so that you're compensated for the time that you spend on it as well. But we really want to build the blog. Like it's starting off as a blog, but we really want to build it into a full-blown platform. We really want it to be an archive and a space where we document what the kind of trajectory of philanthropic giving, so that future generations can be able to use it as a space to learn from, to get wisdom from, and inspiration for the way that they want to kind of carry on their projects and their thoughts and ideas and approaches to African giving as a way to impact social change. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you are going to engage with the essays and the articles, as well as the stories on the blog. It'd be really exciting to see some of your names pitching stories to us in the near future as well. Thank you.
Thank Thank you very much, Karen. Thank you very much for presenting for us that final topic for today. And indeed, storytelling, it's a wonderful thing. Thank you. I think that most of our attendees have listened, and of course, the young man who spoke was quite inspiring, and that is the kind of person that we need to be able to encourage young people from Africa and across the world to discover their full potential and know that they can become better. So it's on that note that we end today's discussions. Our program ends with that last discussion. So I don't know who would need to have a recap of today and a little reminder of tomorrow's program. So today's program ends now, but tomorrow we shall continue at the same time with the rest of our program. So I'd like to encourage everyone who has joined us now to join us again tomorrow at 2 p.m. East African time. That is 11 a.m. GMT. Yes, so it's 11 a.m. GMT. So depending on where you're joining us from, 11 a.m. GMT tomorrow, let's make it a date so that we meet and continue these discussions. We're going to meet brilliant young people who would be talking to us about something a little bit different from what we looked at today. So let's make it a date. We're going to have a recap tomorrow, okay? We're going to have a recap of today to first thing tomorrow before we start out with the discussions. So in the absence of anything, I don't know if anybody from the African Philanthropy Network has anything they would like to say before we actually close this session.
No, okay, we don't have anything. No, we don't have anything. Thank you very much.
Okay, excellent. So Thank you very much, ma'am. In the absence of anything, would like to thank everyone. There are others who stuck with us from the beginning and right up to this moment. There are others who joined us later. Wherever you're joining us from, we'd like to thank you for taking out the time to come and join this conversation with very young, amazing African youth, and would like you to take a date with us tomorrow to discuss more. So please do come back, and please do have an excellent rest of your day. Thank you.